Hey friends, and let us begin with F3. And we are going to start off with the very first chapter that is going to talk about a little bit of an introduction to the concept of accounting. So, here we are just going to look at these concepts in a gist and try to understand what we're going to actually learn in this entire subject. Let us begin with asking us the very purpose of financial reporting. Now, the chapter says in accounting, right? And yet we are discussing on a concept called reporting. Let me give you a bit of a background behind that. So, since last few decades or even years, I would call, the concept was more towards accounting. But as and how globalization improved, and we are seeing businesses turning into multi-million dollar businesses, and a lot of people wanting to invest their money into different businesses, it was understood that these concepts are not going to stick only to accounting solely. Now, it is more important that how the business is able to report to these owners, to these stakeholders who are investing their money into their business. So, purely accounting would probably be understood by the people who are of that background, who have studied that. Let us take a small example, the concepts of debit and credit. An engineer is not going to know why do you debit purchases, and an engineer will not know why do you credit a cash account, right? So this idea came out where you're supposed to report, and you report it in such a way that at least a layman is able to get some idea out of what the business is doing. And so, although the process starts with accounting, but at the end, we are reporting. We are not just showing the results of accounting. Right, guys? Furthermore, let me introduce or let me even explain you on this part as well that the concepts specifically in this video at least is something that is discussed in much detail in F1. Having said that, there is a good chance somebody might be learning F3 directly and may not have touched F1 yet. Which is why we'll try to cover these concepts as much as required for F3 and maybe a little less in detail because that you will be taught in F1 as well. So let us continue directly over here, and that is what is the purpose, and that is what is financial reporting. So you start by recording your business transactions, you then analyze the recorded transactions, and then you summarize them in a way that makes it useful to yourself, who is the business owner, maybe, or even to the stakeholders who are dealing with your business. All right. Now, let us try to understand what is a business. We spoke about business transactions, recording of business transactions. So, let us understand what's a business. So, a business could be seen in different ideologies. You could think of it as a commercial or industrial body. So, when we say commercial, something who is into making money, or an industrial body, then you could also see it as a consumer of economic resources. If a business wants to give you some output, it is going to consume some inputs. For example, if a company is giving you automobiles, it is going to consume a lot of raw materials like maybe steel, aluminum, fibers, plastic, spare parts, nuts, and so on. So it is a consumer. Then you could see the third one, that is provides jobs. It's a job provider. So the business will employ some people to get its job done, right? A car cannot be made in bulk or in quantity just by one person. So it is providing jobs, and it is an investor of money. So to conduct business, somebody has to put in money. The business will also invest some money into some activity. Without that investment, the business will not be able to make sales or provide services, whatever it is into. So it can be also seen as an investor of money. Again, guys, this is just a broad idea. There can be other views as well, which may not be mentioned over here. So, but this is just to give you a broad idea how a business or what a business can be understood as. Then we speak a little about the types of entity. So broadly, when we are looking into our business world, we have classified in very summarized way that you can have three different types of business entities by the nature of it. The first being the sole trader, second a partnership, and third a limited liability company. So let us try to understand each aspect by the different nature or the different ways in which we can accept it. The comparative chart will help you understand the difference there and there itself. So let's try to understand it that way itself. So a sole trader meaning a proprietor basically. So sole trader means, as the word suggests, sole, you're a single person. So let us say tomorrow you start up a business on your own of providing, let's say, some financial services. You are doing it by yourself. So you are a sole trader. You don't have any team, you don't have any employees, you're doing the business by own. So it is owned and managed by one. Now let us take the concept of a partnership. So what does the name suggest? A partnership. So there is going to be a partner involved, which means it is not similar to a sole trader. It means that you will require two or more people, because if there is more than one person, then only there can be a partner. So here, two or more people come together and they conduct a business. So let us say that your sole firm, the firm that you have started in financial services, now you think that you want to expand and you think that doing alone is not feasible. You know a couple of your friends who think are very very trustworthy to you and who are very good at their work in this field as well. So you approach them and all three of them agree. All right, so let us come together, which forms a partnership. And lastly comes a limited liability company. Here the concept is a little different. So now understand that this requirement of having more people to run the business increases. So from 3 maybe you require 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, so on. But the problem now stands is, the more the people, the difficult it is to manage day-to-day operations. Correct? If there are 15 people who have an equal say, how are you going to even come to an consensus on every day? Maybe 2 or 3 people is fine. You can quickly decide onto some lines. So then came a limited liability company, which solved two problems, just not one. Number one is, in a sole proprietor or as a sole trader or in a partnership, your liability also extends to the business asset, to the personal assets that you have. Really sorry. So let us say that your business assets that you are using to run the business is worth, let's say, 5 lakhs. Tomorrow, for whatever reason, your business went into a very big loss and it has a net liability where you have to shut it down, and your liability stands at, let's say, 8 lakhs. Now, if you are a sole trader or if your legal entity or type of entity is a partnership, the difference 3 lakhs, which is not covered by the business assets, will be recovered from your personal asset. In a sole trader, completely from that one person. In a partnership, in the ratio as it is decided. It could be 70-30, it could be 50-50 between the partners, whatever they have decided. So that 3 lakhs will be recovered from your personal assets. That now is sorted by a limited liability company. What does a company's idea is that it separates the people who are managing or operating the company, and it separates the owners of the company. The owners are known as shareholders. So the concept of the stock market where you are buying and selling shares, that is nothing but, when you own a share, you are nothing but an owner of that company by that percentage of total quantity. Let us say that you hold 10 shares of, let us say, a company named as Apple. If Apple has a total shares in the market of, let's say, 1 billion, then you have the right, or you are the owner of that 1 by the 1 billionth percentage, which is probably, I think, 0.00001, I guess. But you own that till you hold that share. But have you noticed this? Once you're owning a share, you do not get a call from Apple every day asking that, okay, should I give this employee the money even though it is not liable to him? Or should I pay, or should I decide on taking some stationery from a trader, let's say Venus Traders, for example? You don't get any calls from them even though you're the owner, right? Do you? Because you might be owning tens of shares, hundreds of shares. Tomorrow it could be Microsoft, tomorrow it could be a IT giant like Infosys. You are not called by them. So then why is it that way? Because a company has its own board of directors, its own people like CEO, CFO, COO, and so on people, and the different employees who handle the day-to-day operations. You are given the opportunity to vote in for very crucial decisions. Here, a company does is a very simple tactic, and that is, it separates ownership from the people managing it. So let us say tomorrow if company also goes down to a loss. Now you are the owner, but you did not have all the decisions that in your hand. The loss is a good possible probable because of the people who are running it made some errors. So here your liability will only stand to the money that you've invested in those shares of the company. Even after that, if the company is in loss, nobody can come down to your personal assets and tell you that you have to recover for this company. That is the benefit here, right? And secondly, there are thousands of hundreds, thousands, lakhs of shareholders. But now you don't have to worry about all of them consenting on every day-to-day operation business. There is a board of directors and there are operational people like CEO, CFO, etc., who will take care of the daily operation part in a structured way. So that also solves the problem of having more owners, but not worrying about how to decide on a certain matter. I hope you got this, guys. Then comes in separate questions whether you have a separate legal entity or not. So as I discussed, the concept where your ownership is different from that the existence of the business. So it is there in a limited liability company, but here there is no boundary. Your personal assets can also be pulled in if there is a requirement. Now I have mentioned over here except LLP. So an LLP is a limited liability partnership, which is a concept that has recently come down in the last few years. So basically, if somebody wants to continue as a partnership only, he doesn't want to go to a level of a company where there are a lot of compliances also, then there is that option is given to them that they can have a limited liability partnership where they can or their personal assets are safeguarded just the way it is safeguarded in a company. Alright? Now coming to few advantages over here, and that is for a sole trader the compliance is given are less. Any profit is completely to you. You have complete control because you are the owner, you are the boss. And flexible or less stringent. Now guys, let me just clarify one thing over here, that the owner over here, the person running the business, is alone. Not necessary that you may not employ or you may not employ somebody. You can employ, but that will ideally be an employee to you, right? You can have people working for you, but you are the sole owner of or the sole trader, or who's the person under whose the business is running, under whose name the business is running. Okay guys, now partnerships, the advantage is the capital. So more the partners or more the people who are owners of the business, they get in more money, and that money is free of cost for the business. Capital is very important. Then division of roles. So depending on the people that you have, if you've got three people, you can split easily that all right, you take care of operations, one of us will take care of finance, the other one will take care of let's say HR and admin, and maybe other supporting stuff. So that clarifies. Then there is risk sharing. So if there is a loss, you don't have to bear the entire loss, and there is no corporate tax. So usually guys, corporate tax is usually more than the tax that is applied to sole traders or partnerships. So that is one advantage over here. And the limited liability company is that there is confidence for investing. Because you have a good structure, you are limited to the liability up till the amount invested only, nothing more than that. Which brings down to the next point, that is less risk to owners and tax separately. So the money or the amount that is owned by the owners or the shareholders is separate and the company is taxed separately. So let us say that if somebody is getting dividend, the dividend income should be how it is taxed is a question, or how much is it going to be taxed is a question that is supposed to be taken care by the shareholder up to his own dividend. The company will be taxed differently. And share transfer is easy. So for companies, the process, the setup is quite easy, and especially if you're listed, it is very, very easy. All you have to do is on your share trading platform, just click one button. Coming to disadvantages, full unlimited liability. So naturally, the second side of the coin, if you have got full profit, you can have full liability also. There is an issue in succession planning. Now, if you do not have your own child who is probably into the same business, whom are you going to give the business after the time you retire? It becomes a big question mark. Whom to give it? Then long hours as sole responsibility. You need to get the job done by yourself. You're responsible. So there is no 9 to 5 concept over here. And high investment. This can be depending on the nature of the business that you are going into. Coming to partnerships, again unlimited joint liability. Now, when I mean joint liability, it would mean that let us say that you are in a partnership with a friend of yours at 50-50 percentage. And let us say that you have gone to a terrible loss where the business liability, which is not covered by your business assets, is let's say 10 lakhs. So ideally the difference of 10 lakhs which you have to bear, 5 should be yours, 5 should be your friends. But let us say that your friend does not have any personal assets more than 3 lakhs. So there is a shortage of 2 lakhs from his end. Now that 2 lakhs will also be recovered from you. There is no limit in that as well. Again, LLP covers that as well over here. So it's a good point to having an LLP if you can. And dissolution if the partner dies. So unless otherwise you agree, naturally if all the partners except for one die, naturally that becomes a sole trader and the concept of partnership dies. You will have to convert your partnership to a sole trader and other legal formalities. And yeah, slow decisions. Again, that is subjective depending on the number of partners and depending on the views coming out on different aspects. Lastly, coming to companies, in general, the disadvantage is you'll have a lot of compliance. So that is having getting audited, having getting compliance and reporting requirements. Since you are going to utilize the money of shareholders who are not deciding on the day-to-day operations, you need to get compliances done so that the shareholders have good confidence and trust that their money is utilized appropriately. Okay, guys? Moving ahead, let us understand the nature, principles, and scope of financial reporting. So, over here, we are going to discuss a little about financial accounting and management accounting, a different concept over here. So, the basic differentiation between the two is quite simple, and that is a financial accounting concept deals with reporting on financial performance and position, which mean that what is your numerically where does your company stand, what is the valuation, or it will report on the activities that has been done. So let us say that you've done with your operations. After all your operations, your company is into a profit. So now this entire story will be presented, or it will be done in the financial accounting aspect where it will be presented that this is the situation after what we've done. It is more like a post-mortem condition. But a management accounting concept, it deals with information required by management. So if I have to say the nature, so this is historical information. Things have happened, you're just reporting it. But over here, it is related to future planning. If management requires something, it's going to be quite important, right? So it may not be historical, it is going to be for actual decision making. Then who are the users? Usually all stakeholders over here, because whoever has invested money in the business will be worried about what's going on. But here it is only for management who are doing the day-to-day business. And what kind of reports do we have? So the standard three that you know, statement of financial position, also commonly known as balance sheet. Then you got a statement of cash flow that shows you only your inflows and outflows in that specific period. And lastly, the statement of profit and loss that shows you about the profit or loss that you have earned in this period. Hope you got this, guys. And on the management accounting side, budgets or forecasts, so something that will help management take better decisions. All right. Now let us try to understand users and stakeholders' needs. What do they need? So we are reporting something, right? But are we reporting something that they need, or is it completely senseless? So let us try to understand. So first, why do they need, or why is there a need for financial statements? Number one, law requires it to do it. That is, International Accounting Standard 1 asks for a requirement, that is a disclosure requirement. And naturally for users, because that financial statement is one of the only ways for the users to understand what is going on in the company in one go. Nobody is going to allow all of the users, like the stakeholders, maybe suppliers, creditors, maybe let us say even the shareholders, to walk into the company every day and see what is going on. That is practically not feasible as well. So let us try to understand few names over here who can be actually looking into it. So it could be the managers internally, it could be trade contracts or contractors who are having different contracts with us. It could be providers of finance like bankers. It could be taxation authorities, so the IRS department. There could be employees, so the people who are actually in the organization using it for some purpose. The shareholders, as I just discussed, any other government agencies who wants to publish some information, or the natural public directly as well, who will turn into possible shareholders if at all they think that investing is a good option. Apart from that, you've got national laws and taxation authorities wanting this financial statements. You have the accounting board require you to have these financial statements, and banks specifically. So these are more on the side it is required for the business to survive. That is why even these are marked separately. So these are more of an non-optional requirement because they require it. Otherwise, certain legal requirements cannot be met. Now let us try to understand what governance is. Something that is very crucial in today's business world. Let us try to understand a couple of terms to understand this concept of governance. And the first being is you will come across a terminology called those charged with governance. Going ahead, you're going to come across this terminology quite a lot. What does this mean? And that is those who are responsible or those who have the capacity, those who are given the authority to conduct certain decisions in the business, or those who are responsible for certain things in the business. Let us take the management. Management is responsible for anything that happens in the business. Tomorrow, if you are working for a huge company like BMC Software, you might be, let us say, a senior level employee, you might be a manager employee, but you're still an employee. You will do what is required to do as the management directs you to do it, right? So you are not deciding something, but the management is. So tomorrow, if something happens, the management are the people who are charged with governance, and they will be responsible if something goes wrong. Next is corporate governance. So corporate governance is basically how will you do things and how, or rather having a framed structure to getting things done in a very appropriate and transparent manner. I'm just trying to tell you a very crude, a very raw description of the concept. Technically, we've got much more to discuss, but as in now it will be required, we'll discuss on them as well. Then comes in the legal responsibilities of directors. So as I said, the board of directors is the one who are corely on the very top of the company, overlooking the operations. Let me also try to explain you it in this fashion. In a company, you've got shareholders who are the owners, and you've got people like the CEO, CFO, and so on who are actually running the organization on a day-to-day basis. So your board of directors are more like a bridge. They are there to make sure that they take care of the shareholders' needs, and they will independently overlook over the operations, over any of the matters of the business, so that things do not go in a wrong way. Try to remember the legal responsibilities by the acronym APDANE. You can change it the way you want it. You can have it PDANE or whatever it is. So you can also think of it as statutory duties, and that is they need to act within the powers that they have. They need to promote the success if there is any. They will have to exercise independent judgment. That is very, very important. See, as I told you, they are the bridge between the shareholders and the people running the business on a day-to-day basis. So they have to have an independent judgment because they have to take care of both the sides. Very crucial. Then declare interest. Okay, so if at all they have any interest vested in the company, then they need to make sure that they declare it, that they have something personally interested in the company. Let's say that they have some money given to the company as a loan, or maybe let's say that they have a lot of shares of the company. So naturally their decisions are not going to be completely independent. They need to declare that. Then avoid conflicts of interest. So if any of other part of their personal or professional life is conflicting with the decisions of the company, keep it professional. Do not let it conflict it with this duty. Not to accept benefits from the company, naturally, because if you are accepting it indirectly, you are going to do what the company requires you to do. And exercise reasonable skill. You are given the position of a director because you are skilled and you will be experienced to a certain level. So make sure that that is utilized. Hope you got this, guys. And directors need to consider what is that? Long term consequences in any decision that they make, not just a couple of days of consequences. Interests of the employees. A lot of times, in thinking about the shareholders and thinking about the company, We forget the employees who are actually getting the groundwork done for us. Even they should not be forgotten. I mean, really sorry, they should not be forgotten. Then developing good relations. So they need to develop good relations with everybody, because with those good relations they will be able to understand and get better communication, better information, which will help them to get better decisions. Then they have to make sure that the company's image is stayed, or it is stayed at the standard required. Anything that they decide will hamper the image of the company in the society. So they have to make sure of that while deciding into any decision. Then you have high standards of business conduct. Make sure you follow business conduct to the highest standard that you can and act fairly. Again, they have to act independently, which will have to make them think that they will have to act fairly. Now, who is responsible for financial statements? We just saw that statements are there, three of them, the most crucial ones. But who is responsible behind them, behind making them, behind maybe approving them? So, preparation or the control environment allowing to prepare, or concept of frauds. So, whoever is preparing it, it is very important that it is made an environment where you are allowed to prepare without any fraudulent activity going on, any intent over there, any kind of pressure that will ensure that the financial statements is not going to be proper. Nothing of that sort has going to be there. You need to have a good environment. Make sure that there is a compliance of laws and regulations, and it should clearly explain on the company's position and aspects surrounding them. So this financial statement is supposed to derive and get you or give you this clear picture that where does the company stand, and anything that will or will not affect the company in the coming days, or even if it is affecting right now, or even if something in the past is affecting it. Lastly, in this chapter, let me discuss or let me show you the basic two statements that you will come across at the most. Statement of cash flow will not be dealt very much in F3 throughout. You will be coming across it through and through, but more often you're going to be experiencing your statement of financial position and your statement of profit and loss. You'll be dealing with this a lot. So this is a very crude idea as to how they are made. This is how they will look after you've made it. So on the right hand side over here, the profit and loss statement, as you can see, you begin with the revenue. For example, if I'm an automobile company, you got automobile sales, you got spare parts, total over here. Then the cost of sales, that is how much you've actually expended to create these. So material, labor, any cash involved over here for any expenses. And then you got other expenses, that is something that is not directly attributable, for example, to the profit. Then comes in the last is the net profit or loss that you've earned. So revenue minus cost of sales, which will give you gross profit, and then you got this thing. Similarly, you got assets and liabilities over here, that is the statement of financial position. So assets over here in different bifurcations, and the liabilities over here in the different bifurcations, as you can see. With this, guys, we end the first introductory chapter of this subject, and let me just quickly get you through a little summary, and we'll just look through a sample question as to what you can face in the examination as well. So to summarize, we understood the purpose of financial reporting, why do we need it. Then we went on to understanding what is a business and the types of business entities that are there in the business world today. Then we understood the nature, the principles and scopes of financial reporting, why do we need it in the first place. We understood why or what does the users or the stakeholders want, because if we are not giving them what we want, what is the point in making these statements. Then we understood the concept of governance and how people like the directors or the management have to face certain issues, or you have to make sure that they follow certain concepts of governance. And then we understood or we saw the base crude format of financial reports. With this, we end this first chapter, and let me take you through an exam question. Guys, please pause the video, try to solve it yourselves. It is not very difficult, and please unpause the video only after you tried. Try to see how if you are able to solve it or not. let us go ahead and discuss it over here. So it's asked us to identify which of the following statements are true. The directors are responsible for preparation of the financial statements of the company. Okay. It is the auditor's responsibility to ensure that the entity complies with the relevant laws and regulations. All right. Directors are responsible for prevention and detection of fraud. Now, from what we've seen till now, we all know that an auditor is somebody who is going to give you an independent review on your financial statements. So, in a very crude concept, an auditor is somebody who ideally shouldn't be a part of your organization. All right. So, this is one concept of the auditor which you might require to understand this question better. And let me clarify a couple of other concepts over here again. And that is, directors as an independent body, right? There are people who are actually preparing the financial statements for the company, their employees, the managers, the CFOs, and so on. Now, with this, guys, can you think of the answer? And let us go ahead and see it. And that is, the answer is only first and third as true. Now, why is it that? Although the first point makes sure, although that the people making the financial statements might be the people employed, like the CFOs and so on, directors are the apex body, and before anything goes out to the public, directors need to make sure it is right. The questions will be asked to the director and not to the people working in the company on the ground level. So responsible is the crucial word here. They're responsible for preparation. It is not saying that they prepare themselves, but they are responsible. Let me take you to the third one, which is saying it's correct, and that is directors are responsible for prevention or detection of fraud. Yes, they are responsible, but again, this is a very standard statement. It does not mean that they are responsible in every situation. If it is very, very legally viable that the director had done whatever it can to make sure there is no possibility of a fraud, and yet it happens for some reason where his fault is not proven, maybe they are not. But again, for the time being, on a very crude sense, the primary responsibility falls on the directors if there is a fraud. I hope you got this, guys. Now, why isn't the second point very responsible? Now, please make sure the auditor's responsibility is to give an independent opinion. His job is to tell them if there is something off the track. His job is to tell them this is not correct. Then it is again the responsibility of the company to make sure they rectify it. The auditor does not do that for you, which is why it is not his responsibility to ensure that the company complies. His responsibility is to ensure that he reports that this is going right or wrong, or correct or not appropriate. Hope you got this, guys. So with this we end the video. Naturally, since this was a recorded video, you did not have any chance to raise questions, maybe ask any doubts. So you can come to us on the Telegram group by the name of ACC India to ask your doubts and have a discussion with us at any time that you want. So I hope you understood the concepts clearly as possible, guys, and thanks for watching.